So let me ask you this. I mean, part of what is causing a lot of these problems is Wall Street and the big central banks and all that stuff. So what is your, I mean, I'm obviously no bones about it. In the upper corner of this is a Bitcoin donation. I'm a Bitcoiner. I'm pro Bitcoin. I'm a Bitcoin maximalist. I'm not a fan of the altcoins. I think those are more susceptible to scams or whatever. So what would your policy be as a member of Congress with regard? Because I know Biden has this bill, SB 121, and I think there needs to be some regulation personally, but I'm worried about forcing Americans to all use a central banking digital currency, which is just a digital Federal Reserve slave coin, in my opinion. So what is your stance on that?
I don't know enough about Bitcoin. I know, here's the thing. This is one of those areas that to me is a little bit niche over the past couple of years, and I haven't really focused on it. And I'm not within the realm of investing either. So, but I would definitely be the person to make sure to consider all of it. And I have no personal agenda in it. So it would really come down to, what do the majority of people really think about this? What is in the best interest for the most people? How do we do it so people don't get screwed? And I generally view everything from the lens of protecting regular people. So that's just how I operate. So whatever that would look like, and I don't know enough about the policies regarding Bitcoin. And to be honest with you, I don't completely understand it. It's one of those things like logarithm, like it's been explained to me a million times, or the point spread at a ball game. My husband, like, he can't believe that I still don't understand this. There's just certain things that the rule against perpetuities in law school, a lot of people have trouble. Like, I'm just not going to understand it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, certain things are complicated to me in terms of that, but yeah.
Well, first of all, I give you credit for admitting that up front, because I think a lot of politicians or people in public spaces don't understand Bitcoin, but then they just repeat something they heard, like Liz Warren say, it's bad for the environment. And she doesn't know what she's talking about.
I won't do that. Like, if that's the thing, I am a research person, like, that goes down rabbit holes. So if something were sitting in front of me that was policy, I would have it, like, I would research it and talk to people and meet with people and make sure I really understood it. And so that's why I feel it would be really, it wouldn't be smart to make a comment on something that I don't really know that much about right now. Is that not the right answer?
Well, no, that's a great answer. It's just shocking because politicians don't speak like that.
I'm not a politician. I'm a public servant.
Which, that's why I applaud you and I have you on the show. Well, I'll say I appreciate you saying that, Jen. And I would offer. I said, it's funny. Dr. Stein said a very similar thing to me. She goes, I'm willing to open about it, and she sent me her person that runs her, her finance or whatever. And I'm trying to have a conversation with him. So I offer to you as well. I would love to have a longer conversation with you. I could even set up a Zoom call with someone that's very, very knowledgeable on this. And because I'm trying to get as many people running for office to get to understand. I'll just say this basically, just to plant this seed. Bitcoin is digital gold. The cryptocurrencies are like stocks. They're digital stocks. So
right. I understand that it's the I don't know if you say it's like the OG, but I understand that it's the one that actually has a substance attached to it.
Yes. Because
I understand that.
Yeah. There's no Bitcoin CEO. There's no offices that can be raided by the FBI. It lives on the blockchain.
You know what? I think my sort of reluctance with a lot of that is, and this is where I am, like, just very, I want to live in the woods, right? Like in a cob house in the woods and be a dryad. Like, so my thought is, what happens with Bitcoin when there's no grid anymore? What happens with that? So, like, in my mind, like, when people say, well, what are your thoughts on environment? My thoughts on environment are that we're going to need to degrowth, and we're going to need to replant. And it's not just a matter of doing what we're doing and just finding new energy resources. It's not going to work. It's just not going to work. And that's my thought, is like, eventually we're all going to be living in smaller, sustainable, regenerative ag communities. At least that's my vision. And so that's why a lot of the more digital stuff, to me, I wonder, like, what place would I have for that? Like, what place where they'll be in my sort of utopian / apocalyptic future that we're going to be contending with? No, but seriously, like, what happens with those things if we have no more grid?
Several things. Sue, first of all, if we have no more power grid, we're going to have bigger problems than I can't use my Bitcoin. So that's the first
why
thing.
I'm talking about living in small, sustainable, regenerative communities. That's the point. That's what I'm thinking.
But regards to one of the things that grew Bitcoin in the country of El Salvador was they started what they called a circular economy in a small town of El Zonte, which is a little beach surfing town in El Salvador. And they started using it because it's peer-to-peer. And so you have roughly 2.5 billion people on planet Earth that don't have access to traditional banking, but they all have a smartphone, right? So we can just do a transaction, you and I together, and we can buy goods and services with it. It's a store of value. And therefore, there isn't the Federal Reserve, which is an illegal banking cartel, coming in, dictating it. There's the IMF saying, oh, we're going to pull your funding if you don't do this corrupt thing or that corrupt thing, right? They did that famously with Ecuador to make sure that they really gave up Julian Assange. So Bitcoin is just going back to what gold was used for. I mean, humans have used we've used coffee beans, cacao beans since the dawn of time. Printed money has only been around for about 300 years. Gold has been around for thousands more. So that's all it is, right? So it's just a way to do that. And it's, if you want to send money, if we go into a more global economy, you want to send money to your family in another part of the world, you don't have to use all these banking fees because there's all these middlemen agencies that are designed to kind of fleece you of your money. So it is more what you're talking about in a sustainable, aggregate, small community. It is more sustainable. I've seen it firsthand in El Salvador. Okay. So that's the thing I like. Can it be used?
So you're saying it's not completely dependent on internet technology?
Well,
and I know what you're saying. Like if we lose that, we lose everything, which is why I'm going to be in a camper with a couple of chickens and, have my whole little thing going on, because that's what I mean, I don't know.
Your bank account, all of your money in regular bank account,
everything's worthless.
Is worthless. Everything. Yeah. So then,
okay. So here's the other question. So let's say that, and again, I honestly really do not know. It would have to be also per policy. I would call you and ask you to look it over and see what you think, and I'd ask for opinions and suggestions. But, what happens when it really, at the end of the day, you're still having to pay taxes in US dollars, right? So you're still bound by the currency here. So what, you know what I mean? How do you ever escape that?
Well, that's why I would love to see forward-thinking people in Congress, such as yourself, get knowledgeable about this, because, first of all, let's just look at the United States. So it's a monetary sovereign. Once Nixon got us off of the gold standard in 1971, the United States can print its own currency. Yeah. So
I'm an MMT person. I understand the MMT. That I'm good. I totally get that.
So right there, taxation is theft. We don't even need taxes, right? So
not income taxes, but here's the thing: is that if you live in states, let's say,
yes,
you still do, right?
Yes.
So you still do, and it's still going to be in that currency.
So you could do like the city of Miami several years ago started accepting payments in Bitcoin. You could pay parking, whatever little registration fees the city had. So you could start doing that on a city level, on a state level, and on a federal level. You could start accepting Bitcoin to pay your state taxes, to pay and if we're doing transactions, right? There's nothing, because as you said, and you bring up a great point, local governments in the United States cannot print their own money. So they are dependent upon tax revenue, usually sales tax and property tax and income tax, but mainly sales tax to fund all of the local things, right? Of course, every state does get some federal money. So if we were on a Bitcoin standard, then a product would be whatever, $10, and it would have sales tax, but you would just pay for it in Bitcoin. And then that Bitcoin would be the taxing. You would use the Bitcoin to fund the way you fund everything else.
Now we're talking about but then I just don't see the powers that be going for that. I don't see powers that be saying, yes, we'll accept Bitcoin instead of our own currency, because I feel like then they're losing control of the whole situation.
which is why if we all use Bitcoin, just like you don't see the powers that be just suddenly defunding Israel and letting this thing. So you, as you said, it's going
No.
to have to happen another way. So it's going to need economic activism, right?
But
So if
this has to be global. Like what we're talking about obviously has to be global. So is there as much, like, where is there the most interest in this? Like, where do you think
it's in developing countries because they don't have it. So again, El Salvador made Bitcoin legal tender 3 years ago, and it's now attracting, it paid off half of its IMF loan. It'll be completely out of debt by 2030, and it's attracting business. And then you've got all of these circular economies popping up, what we call Bitcoin bubbles, the Philippines, Africa, all throughout Central and South America. And you're seeing other governments start to realize the power of this. I mean, you had the Houston Fire Department pension make 10% of their pension into Bitcoin, right? So people are starting to see this. Is a big government going to, like the United States, going to go to Bitcoin? No, the US will go to Bitcoin last, but it will do it because if everyone is doing it, which they already
right?
are, and institutional money is getting involved. Institutional money wouldn't get involved in Bitcoin if they thought it was just some crazy scam for hackers and, gamers or whatever.
Yeah,
So
I have no, like, I'm completely open to all of it. I have no, like, I really don't have a position. And if that's something that would be in people's interest, I'm fine with it. Like, yeah, it's just not something that is definitely not some hill that I'm really even going to fight about. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like I'm just not with the capital thing to begin with. That's why. So like in my mind, however you all want to like do that, that's just fine. You do that, do that. I'll be
well, I
living in
mean,
a camper.
it can actually be a thing that helps support regenerative agriculture, and it's something you just
Yeah.
I'm going to just plant this seed using the agricultural motif here of something to learn more for you, because it
Yeah.
actually feeds and fits into all of the things that you stand for once you get it. I didn't get it at first either. I'm a, anti-war pro-labor socialist.
Yeah.
I'm not a finance or a tech guy. And once I started to understand it, I started to see, like, Max Kaiser wrote an article that was in The Guardian in 2014 saying it is a tool for activism, because if activists had real money power, we could change things very quickly.
Right. Well, it's definitely,
Look at the
it messes
GameStop
up
thing.
their system. It definitely, I see it as part of the rebellion. You know what I
Yes.
mean? I definitely see it and globally as part of the rebellion. But yeah, I'll study that. I have to also learn more about AI because I definitely don't really understand a whole lot about that either, other than as someone who is generally concerned about privacy rights and civil liberties. I have some very serious concerns.
Yeah, it's a whole new world, AI, and it's something where I'm learning myself.